And hello. Yes, I've decided to try my hand at doing it on YouTube today instead of on Twitch. For those who are just, watching the pre-recording or otherwise, not used to what I do, normally I sculpt 3D models intended for 3D printing. Well, miniatures. The idea is that I've gotten it down to where I can do like this miniature. Its chainmail shirt and wrinkly tabard and swords and all that other stuff was done in about 2 hours. And then you can print them how you want them. So what I'm doing, I'm basically going in, I sculpt these miniatures, and here we go. Now, for those who watched before, I have this nice little grid here. Bing, 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 bing. I still have to make a mark for human wizard down here because that's what I did Tuesday. And I'm going to find something to do in here. I'm thinking I have no idea what I'm going to do today. So, let me go ahead and hide this once again. By the way, I am sponsored by Anycubic. And by that I mean, as long as I say, I printed these miniatures, like this one is printed in the actual Anycubic resin, the stuff that came with it, and all that sort of thing. And every time I create a figure, I print at least one copy on the Photon. Then I also need to get around to doing a review of the printer once I've gotten down some larger prints. So anyway, there was a website that I stumbled across a while back that basically what it does, random character. Pardon me while I scratch. Random race, class, weapons, gear, the whole 9 yards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click random. Now the thing is, some of the results from this page I've already got on my little grid over here, and some of them I don't. So what I do is I go ahead, try to find something like right now. I've already got, there are more barbarians in what I've done so far than anything else. So no on the barbarians. That's actually a good one. A hill dwarf paladin. I don't know if this is something y'all would be interested in watching me sculpt, but I think it'd be interesting to sculpt. So what we're going to do, hill dwarf paladin, we're going over here. This is Daz Studio. And again, since this is my first broadcast on YouTube, this right here, the geometry, is actually a figure I made myself in 3D Studio Max. I then used Daz Studio to rig it. And what this does is, Daz Studio has this nifty little bit where you can create morphs that actually change the bone structure. So, like right now, you can see the bones in the figure. These little diamond-shaped pieces are basically tells the computer where the joints are. And when I drop him down, all the way down to say halfling, you see that the bones move with him, so I can pose him and he won't be that distorted. So in this case, I'll be dropping him down to dwarf. And we can undo that. Now, on this particular random result, he uses chainmail, and his primary weapon appears to be, well, gee, how cliche. It's a warhammer. Yeah. Isn't that just great? And by the way, feel free to say whatever you want to say in chat, you know. So anyway, what I'm going to do is, now that I've got the basic dwarf shape, it's time to add on his extra bits. In this case, we're going to start with one of my classic tunic bits. What happens with this is, for all intents and purposes, just to provide the bottom of a tunic or hauberk or any other kind of mid-thigh or nearly knee-length clothing item. And the next thing he's going to have, I'm going to give him sabatons. And next is, he's going to have a shield. But do I want to give him one of the standard shields, or want to give him a... Yeah, let's go ahead and give him a heater shield. And then a warhammer. We've got a couple different kinds of hammer. The problem being is that, let's make it an axe, simply because I've already used the two basic warhammers relatively close to each other. So, beaked axe in the right hand. There we go. And I can add some detailing to it if I need to. And this is our basic dwarf shape. Now, yes, we are going to be adding hair and a beard, but possibly, maybe let's add a helmet. So, let's go with a more Nordic style of helmet. That doesn't look great. So, oh, yeah. So what we're gonna do? Yeah, I know what happened there. That's a. Okay, so let's undelete helmet, and then what we're gonna do? I am going to there we go. That fits better. Now, this is our basic figure. One thing I got to do is I got to take that shield, and I'm going to kind of rotate it back against the arm just a bit. Now, oh, one other thing. Because he's going to be wearing a breastplate, I need to have that. What that does, that kind of covers up the chest part, and it makes it more peaked, like what a breastplate would have. Anyway, just for right now, we're going to go ahead and hide axe, shield, skirt, sabatons, helmet, and breastplate. Because what we're going to do... Oh, I accidentally hit a toe. What we're going to do is, except for the arms, we need to pose, or except for the hands, we need to pose him right now. Now, I'm thinking kind of leaning forward, his sword, or his axe back behind him, ready to go. And so let's see. One thing I do, just in case you don't know, is I do go ahead and kind kind of take the stances and see how my actual body does. So kind of tilts forward. Yeah. So one thing that I believe in is that the hips and the shoulders should never, ever be in the same geometric plane with each other or the ground. So bend this leg forward, side to side a bit, and unbend that because that's too far. And then now let's go to a front view and let's focus in on that left foot, because this is what's going to end up being on the ground. Now you may or may not be able to see it on YouTube, but there is in fact a little gray line right here that is the ground plane. And I'm going to bend this shin just to get this foot completely out of the way, so that when I hit Control D, it drops to the ground plane. Now let's zoom in. It's gonna okay. Now we need to unbend the right shin, because that was just to get him out of the way. And the closest we can come is like that. So now we're going to bend. Let me make sure I didn't just accidentally. Okay. Now we're going to twist the thigh a bit and twist the shin. And we're going to bend the foot quite a bit more than bend the toes. Okay, I can unbend the foot a little bit there. That's a bit too much twist on that foot. So yeah, there we go. And now perspective view. Now I'm going to select the chest and the abdomen, and I'm going to twist them just a little bit and side to side them just a little bit. I'm going to bend the abdomen forward a bit and the chest back. Abdomen needs to come back just a little bit because it's off balance. Okay, so both the abdomen and chest need to twist a little bit that way. Now let's make the shield visible so we can see what we're about to do here. For one, we bend the arm, because the shield is almost always carried bent. Then we're going to take that shoulder, we're going to twist it so that the shield is kind of out. Then we're going to take the forearm and twist it, because that's just too, yeah, there. Okay, now the neck. We're going to go side to side with the neck, because he's kind of pulling his head away from where he's got the shield. The shoulder would also kind of hunch up, so we're going to bend the shoulder up and bend the arm down. This shoulder would kind of bend backwards a little bit and go down. The shoulder would go down, but the arm would come up. And the hand will go side to side. And let's see the axe just to get this in perspective. Okay, twist the head, and we're going to go side to side a little bit like that. Yeah. Then we're going to close the mouth. No, I'm going to make it open just a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. And now, just to make sure that we've got this guy in a pose that can actually be put onto a base, because his legs are kind of way wide apart. File, import. And then we go to bases. This guy would probably be rocky terrain. And now we're going to Y translate it down. And that's looking pretty good, although there's some significant gaps under the... So let's just kind of rotate to get those gaps out of the way. And that's not enough. Yeah, there we go. And then it's just kind of... That should be good enough. And that's where our basic dwarf is. Now, next thing we're going to do is, you notice how this tunic is like reacting with the thighs twisting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select each thigh. See how much it's twisted? It's at -5. We're going to take, so we're going to take this right thigh here and make it +5. And then the left thigh is at 30. So this left thigh will be at -30. Okay, that helps clear out some of it. Excuse me. Anyway, we're also going to take the tunic. One thing that it has is it needs to be a little bit higher resolution than what's actually shown. It's got some issues. Now we're going to hide everything but the actual body. The reason for this is because I need to export all of this separately. And hello, first appearance halt. Excuse me. So I take this file, I export it. Can't see. I'm sorry, you can't see the various windows that show up when I do this. So we're going to call this DeepPal body. Then we're going to hide him. We're going to make the axe, the shield, and the breastplate. Not the breastplate, the helmet visible. We're going to export these. DeepPal props. Then we're going to hide them again. Then we're going to open up the breastplate, sabatons, and... No, not the sabatons, just the breastplate and the tunic skirt. File, export, DeepPal clothes. There's a reason why I have the sabatons separate. And that's because I've got to make a top for them. Export, DeepPal sabatons. And then the base. File, export, DeepPal base. And that's that. And so now the next thing to do is open up ZBrush. And here in ZBrush, the first thing we got to do is import the body. And we're going to import the body, because, you know, that's the way it works. Because if we didn't import the body, then hey, we got a body nobody knows what to do with. So there's the body. And that's just his current basic pose. There'll be tweaks done to it before we get around to anything else. Now we append a new subtool. And this subtool is going to be the clothes. Another new subtool, and this one's going to be sabatons. Yet another subtool, and this one's going to be the props. And then finally another subtool, and this one's going to be the base. Now, one thing about doing the base in ZBrush is I can tweak it to better fit. For example, right now I can go ahead with a move brush, zoom in on this area here, and pull it down so it doesn't so much look like it's poking through the foot. Same thing here. No, I better not. Hide the body, grab the middle, pull it down. And grab this and pull it out just enough so that it looks more like a rock beside his foot and not like his foot's going through the stone. Okay, that's our dwarfy. However, this is not enough for an actual full-on figure. I mean, he's still horribly faceted for one. For another, he doesn't have most of his details except for those in the helmet. He has no beard. None of that. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off using this sucker. As it says, Wacom. This is my tablet. It's a Wacom Intuos with my nice nifty. Yeah. So now I go in here and I slightly, too strong. I lower the intensity and I slightly smooth out this breastplate area. There's some wrinkles on it, both from the morph and the pose. Okay, and I come over here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the bottom of the tunic area, which actually is, the bottom. I'm also going to take this, bring it up and out a bit because it's a bit too unnatural for the pose. Remember, these are just basic, the geometry that comes from Daz Studio is just the basic shapes. that the rest of the figure will follow. So for example, pulling this up like this, it's a bit more flowy. Now I'm going to shrink the mouse, because the next thing I do is I'm going to pull these in a little bit in areas where they don't quite blend. It's going to be difficult to blend later. Like here. Okay. I'm not going to need to tweak the rest of that yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use and subdivide it a couple times until it looks nice and smooth. Then delete lower. Now on the body for this guy, most of his muscles and that won't be showing. There's really not much tweaking to do on him. At least not on the body. Put on the helmet, and we can see that there might be some tweaking I'll need to do here. I'm going to grab and pull down the inner chin. This won't do much now, but when it comes time to do his beard, it'll make it behave a good bit better. I also need to go ahead and with my Move Topological brush, come in really close on that face, zoom in a bit more, and shrink the mouse. And then focal shift it a good bit. And bring that down. Then I'll use inflate. Where did I put my inflate? There's my inflate. Shrink it down even more, and very lightly inflate the lower lip. The reason for this is because with a beard, the lips become harder to find. By inflating them like this, when you go to paint them, they're a bit more obvious. Now we frame out, and now we're also going to go ahead and give it a bit more geometry. And now we have the sabatons to worry about. Now before we do anything with the sabatons, we're going to hide them, and we're going to use what's called masking to create the tops of these with no knee pads. Let's hide. I'm not going to have any knee pads, but just going to have sabatons. And open in the back of the knee, because you need that for motion. We've never put on any kind of armor. I put on some training armor and SCA armor, and some. Without something at the knee, it's a total pain. Or behind the knee, you're not going to move. Not very well, at least. Yeah. And then here. I will admit sometimes I do get a little quiet while I'm doing this. That's usually while I'm trying to concentrate on making sure that I get these lined up and everything's all right, nice and proper, and really not ungood, and especially not double plus ungood. And if you don't know what I'm talking about by double plus ungood, yeah, there's some books you need to read. Big time sci-fi fan here, and I guess it would count as sci-fi, although it's more dystopian political fiction. Anyway, the scary fact that there is enough to be counted as an entire category as dystopian political fiction, yeah, that's kind of scary. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I go down here to extract. I want this at 0.03. Extract. Accept. And now it's a new piece, but you'll notice that it is selected. It's masked, so I gotta unmask it. It's an unmasking ceremony. And by the same token, I need to go back to him because, oh look, those are unmasked. So I gotta, those are masked. Now, it's not masked on there anymore. Now, I select the new shin plates, and I go to Dynamesh 256. What this does, this converts this whole surface into a single solid mass. Now I'm going to make the mouse bigger, about there. And I'm going to smooth out the bottom edge because we want this to eventually kind of blend into the leg. And by smoothing it, we're getting it a lot closer to the leg than we had it before. Now the reason I'm using the mouse for this and not the tablet, well, if you've ever used both a spray can, you know, rattle can as some people call them, and an airbrush, it's like the difference between them. Sometimes you want 100% on the second you push that little button, and sometimes you want the control being able to adjust. Okay, now it's divided a couple times. And what we're going to do, we're going to make the sabatons visible. And we also need to make the sabatons higher resolution, so we're going to divide them for a little bit. And now we're going to merge down and blend all these into one piece. Now the next thing we do, remember that Dynamesh? We're going to do it again, this time at a much higher resolution because we're going to be doing most of our stuff at this tier. Now one thing it does, everything's now one single solid surface. So I can go in here and blend this in and erase all of our seam lines. One thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding a breastplate on top of some chainmail. So it's basically like he'll be like a mid-level dwarven paladin type. Or fighter if you really want him to be a fighter. This allows us to get rid of a lot of the intersection parts, and they all becomes one single piece, all nice and proper. And now we're going to do something down here at the mid calves. We're going to shrink the mouse just a little bit more. Well, and blend. A little bit of blending here. And so now he's got boots of steel. Heavy boots of lead fill his victims full of dread. Well, in this case, it's more like, you know, I'm not going to even try and come up with parody lyrics for Iron Man on that short of a notice. It's heavy boots of steel. Kicks his victims where they feel. Yeah. And that looks good. Now I need to go ahead and blend this. I'm gonna go ahead and give him short sleeves and bracers. On the short sleeves on the hauberk underneath the breastplate. This means it's kind of blend in this underarm area. Okay. Now, a little bit of soda real quick. Oh yeah. Empty. Yay. Yeah, go ahead and back. I need to copy this and I need to post it in here. YouTube instead of Twitch today. And alright, now getting back to ZBrush. Go ahead, and the next thing we need to do is we need to make his breastplate. Now we're going to make the breastplate the same way we did the tops of his sabatons. We're going to mask off where the breastplate is. And for this, we're going to basically draw on where a breastplate would be. And come back around. Whoop. Okay, and come around this way. Now, and now we fill it in. And fill in the front. And we're going to extract. Just like we did before. Accept. And while I'm thinking about it, let me put that little trash can down there and get myself another soda. Reload my mug. And before it dries, wipe off the couple droplets of soda that ended up on said monitor, because yeah, I don't want it to become impossible to come off. Do I see a place I missed? Yeah, I missed a spot on dude. Now, unmask, unmask, and we're going to dynamesh him at 256, and then we're going to subdivide him a couple times, because this is going to be for sculpting on and doing details, not for blending in. We also go ahead and need to hide it. Why, you say? Because of a belt, I say. So, let's make it here. No. Yeah, there we go. We're going to extract this at 0.2 or 0.02. Extract, accept, line, and line. And there we have it. Yeah, that's a perfect spot for a belt. And this belt is going to be only dynameshed, or not dynameshed. It's going to be subdivided once. We're also going to shrink this mouse considerably and blend that. That brings it out flatter, so it's not as warped. And then bracers. And then we start detailing everything. Well, we start to. So let's go ahead and draw on where the sleeves will be. And let's hide the breastplate so we can see what we're doing here. Actually, let's go ahead and erase a good bit of this because we want it to be kind of short sleeves. Now the trick will be when it comes time to do the mail. That's when we'll start getting into some serious tricks. And that will come after we've fused much, but not all, of what we're working on. In fact, I think the only thing we'll fuse will be these sleeves. Much of this we're not going to fuse until it's time to actually blend the whole figure together. Because it's better that way. The fewer times you fuse everything, the better. Okay. Now this is going to be an extract at 0.03. Accept, draw, geometry, Dynamesh at 128, yeah. And then before we subdivide, we bring the mouse up a bit and we start fusing, or not fusing, but smoothing it. And then we're gonna smooth this real quick because this is a side effect we don't want. Yeah. Now we go back up to 100 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're gonna blend here. We're gonna come back down in a second because this is gonna have a different end result to the blending because of how it is. Okay. Now, let's frame out. And we're going to Dynamesh, or we're going to subdivide the... What am I doing this? I want subdivide it a couple times. And then we're going to merge down. And then we hit Dynamesh again. We zoom in. And we're going to blend. Well, let's turn this back up to 100%. We're going to blend the sleeve into the shirt. Yeah. Now there's not going to be a neck piece that is a collar because his hair and beard are going to be covering them. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and finish blending this, and then we're actually going to start working on the mail. Now before we do that, we need to basically... Whoa! We need to throw the Wacom on the floor. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Yeah. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and cut in the not so much cut in, but draw on the trim for both the bottom here and the sleeves. So we're going to start off here and then make sure that it... Oh, nope. For one, that was way too high. Actually, I know what I'll do. Forget layer. I'm just going to go to standard, but I'm going to draw on the trim. I have a bit more control over it that way, because I can come in and edit it in position. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and trim it here. And actually, let's go ahead and make it 100% come under, because that'll really help emphasize the intent here. That's and then come over here and hide, or not hide, but so much as unmask this area. Okay, now zoom out, and then we're going to do the same thing over here. Well, let's make it and let's trim off this right here just enough to make it even, and add a little bit here, because what that'll do is that'll help us make it a bit thicker there. Now we do the other sleeve. And then we're going to shrink the mouse a little, because where we're going, we need less size and more control. Or I should say less coverage and more control. Okay, now we're going to frame out. Now this is the trim. It's going to be extracted out at 0.02 instead of 0.03. Because I want this to be a little bit, not quite as much of an extrusion as a full new piece of clothing, but enough to actually be acknowledged. Okay. Now we're going to get into the chainmail. Yay! Can y'all say yay for me? I know I got people watching. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the standard. We're going to make this big enough. Change it to drag dot. And load in an alpha. And this alpha is going to be a chainmail alpha. So the end result is, well, the end result would be a lot better if I turned off lazy mouse. Okay, not deep enough. And not quite big enough. Yeah, here we go. Alright. And I sit here and basically draw these in place. And the end result will look like chainmail on the finished model. Because for all intents and purposes, that's what this is chainmail. The links. Not to be confused with a certain sword and bow wielding video game elf. Hyrulean. He's an elf. Hyruleans are elves. Come on, you all know it. You all can admit it, Hyruleans are elves. That's why they've all got pointy ears. That's why they've all got mastery of bow and sword, or at least the young ones in green tunics do. They wear green tunics. Yeah, they're elves. Gotta get it in the right spot. And let's hide these hands real quick. Just because it's in the way. Whoop. Side note, don't forget what aspect of a tool you're using, whether it's shift, control, or just general usage. Because then you get things like that, where you accidentally mask off a piece. Okay, we have a bottom row. And then we're just going to go ahead and let's start off. Alright, where does it restart? It restarts down here, okay. You'll notice that it's pretty much... Alright. We need to hide the belt. And just go ahead and draw in our links. Once again, not the elf, and not a golf course either. Now, one thing we're going to do is after we've got this next layer, because really and truly, it's large enough that we're not going to need another layer between it and the belt. We're going to start over again above the belt, but not very far. We're only going to go one layer above the belt. The reason for this is it doesn't need it. And when we turn the belt on, I'm going to shrink this and smooth this right here. Make sure that we didn't go... Okay. We're going to need to shrink and smooth some of these bits because we don't want to go above the belt with chainmail. With scales, we can get away with it because, you know, it's a scale that has decided to overlap the belt. But with mail, no. No. Here we go. And we're basically only going to go one layer around because the rest is going to be covered by the breastplate. And before anybody says anything about the direction of the mail, this is how it went. You wanted the rows to be horizontal to make it easier to, or horizontal to the plane of motion to make it easier to bend. Because mail is actually stronger in the vertical than the horizontal. So you wanted the horizontal to be in the direction you would normally bend. In this case, at the waist. Oh wow, it's already 9:05. I've already been on here for an hour. That's actually kind of surprising. Okay, and now just to make sure, we'll turn on the breastplate. Yep. Frame out. And now we're going to do mail on the sleeves, but it's going to go in a different direction. In this case, it's going back. Whoop. This case here. Because this is the direction of movement for this part of the body. Actually, real quick, let's one more up here. Yeah. Let's go ahead and start doing around the bottom of the sleeve. It would help if I actually got it in there. And Gonna add one more right here. Just enough to, yeah, fill in the gap there. Now, this is going to be a low-level, mid-level paladin type, so, yeah. And hey, Unreg, Bats, Fix, how's it going? You caught me while I'm knitting chainmail, or more appropriately, weaving mail, because there's no such thing as chain mail, it's all mail. Yet another thing to be irritated with Gygax and Anderson about. That the identification of weaponry, exhaustive list of polearm types, and then they screw up the sword types badly. In case you're wondering what I mean, it's the longsword. What they call longsword in 1st and 2nd editions, and 3rd actually, was not a longsword. It was an arming sword. They call a bastard sword was a longsword. They just knew that there was a weapon called a longsword because good old Willie Shakes has the father of, I think it's the father of Juliet, say, "Hand me my longsword." And the reason he said that is because in that day and age, longsword was also known as a war sword, and he wanted his sword to go to war with, not his sword to be dueling with. The kind that you use with full heavy armor and a not necessarily a shield, but definitely not, a buckler sitting in the streets going, "Hi, I swat the buckler. I swashing my buckler. I'm in your base swashing my buckler." Okay. Make the props visible real quick. Yep. He does have a Norman. See, that's the thing. He's going to be kind of a mix between a Viking-style helmet and beaked axe and a engraved breastplate. In fact, let's go ahead and do the breastplate right now. So what have y'all been up to? Have any of y'all been working on sculpting? Let's see, brush, tablet pressure, Z intensity. Let's see what happens if we... Oh, no, we want to turn off the alpha and turn it to dots. Okay, that tells us what I need. Let's turn down the intensities. Turn down. Alright. What we're going to do is we're going to draw on kind of a runic symbol. So we're going to... Nope. And then we're going to add on wings. We're not just going to have wings coming up. we're going to have wings coming down. Like that. Actually, no, that's looking too much like a swastika. No, I don't want something that looks like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to now make the wings from here. Yeah. We're going to come up and down. Going to come up and down. I don't know what the heck that was. Oh, it was a housefly. Meh. I didn't. So I'm going to come up and down. We're going to do some little quick, and then 3. 1, 2, 3. Unless we have the breastplate, and we're also going to go ahead and add on wings on the back. Okay, and we're also going to go ahead and add in some details on the greaves. Let's go ahead and add in little ankle bolts. No, let's do it with the inflate tool, because we want to draw it on and then make it nice and no. Try it more like this. That'll do. And and then I need to make it here and here. Okay, so let's go ahead and dynamesh, or not dynamesh, but subdivide the helmet. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up here, and just for the sake of, actually it's dynamesh 512. Nope. Let me go ahead and with slash make it big, make it weak, and turn off dynamesh. I'm going to just kind of reinforce the, oh, not quite so big. reinforce the lines around the smaller seam here. And here. Then I'm going to use standard Z sub, drop that intensity a bit, and just kind of draw in some pattern on the helmet to represent what's called cutout, knockout material. It'll give you some detail, some texture without being too ridiculous. And it'll also help reinforce the idea that those are bands of support of some kind here. Okay. This is something that won't necessarily show up well as anything more than just a vulgarity of surface on an FDM printer, but it'll really show up nicely on a resin printer. Okay, let's frame out. I'm going to leave the sealed unadorned because whoever's got... Well, the next step, I'm going to go ahead and hide everything because I decided I'm going to go ahead and take care of the beard. The beard and the hair. Now, what we're going to do is going to make the mustache separate because of course we are. Give him a nice Groucho stash there. And we're going to extract it at 0.3. Oh, no, 0.02. Accept. Yep. Select him. Yep. And Dynamesh it up. Oh, not him. It. At 128. No. So we need to go ahead and grab move. No, move topological. Move this out from under and this out from under. And then Dynamesh. And then shrink the darn and move and then make it bigger. And move it out. Because that stash will be coming over top of the rest of the beard. And we want to make sure it's clearly visible as a stash. Then, we go back to him, shrink this back down, and we're going to draw on what will be our hair and beard. Okay, so we're going to come under here And then we're gonna come up to the chin, come back down, and we're going to erase the part that actually made contact with the lip, because you know we don't need lip hair. And then we're going to come back over there, because he does have hair, not just a helmet. Well, that went too close to the ear. And that stroke was right there is why I use a mouse. Let's turn the helmet back on just so we can see. And we need to make sure we got it here. Alrighty. That's the parts that's going to have hair. Let's turn this off. And we need to kind of undo that. Alright. Now we're going to extract it at 0.03. Accept, draw, draw, and then geometry, Dynamesh. And now we're going to use move tool. We're going to start dragging this down and this down. Put this back up. I'm going to drag it around and forward and to the side. And then we're going to shrink it so we can close it in with the neck here and back here. We are then going to very lightly smooth all aspects of it. And then we're going to drag the hair down and back. And just to make sure how it goes, we turn on the helmet. Actually, let's select the helmet and hide the darn shield. Okay. Now, we're going to need to move this in so it's not poking out from under the helmet. And the same thing on this side. And then a little bit up here. And here. I was going to draw it in. I know one thing we need to do. It's going to be almost a clapiture, but we're going to split masked parts. And then hide this, turn this on, and I'm going to inflate it. Deformation, inflate. Make sure that it's there we go. Now back to the beard. And we're gonna kind of pull it out a bit more, and out over here, and then up a bit, because we need this all to go up above the breastplate. So, turn this on, and we're gonna grab it and go down. Okay. Now, we're going to we're going to subdivide it. Geometry, divide, divide, divide. And now it's going to be time to use slash to actually make our hair. Yeah, reading back, Bachelor wouldn't know anything about wedding stuff, huh? Yeah. All of us. Me. Okay, now let's zoom out and shrink this. And we're doing our Z intensity of 16 negative, and let's start drawing in our major chunks of hair. Okay. See, the problem is a lot of runic symbols resembled what would become the Nazi variant of the swastika, because anything that was radial in nature was symmetrical and therefore powerful. It's yet another thing of what happens when somebody decides to use a, well, historical symbol for their own purposes. Beyond that, let's not get into it. I mean, heck, did you know that Charlie Chaplin was once credited as saying, actually, before we do this, we really need to Dynamesh it, because there is a distortion of polygons. So we're going to Dynamesh it at 512 and give it a subdivision. Yeah, Charlie Chaplin was once quoted as saying that he would never forgive Adolf Hitler for associating the little tramp's beard with hate and rage and death and destruction. Of course, there were many, many, many more things. I mean, heck, his own speech, that wonderful speech in The Great Dictator. You know, it's something that people actually forgot about. His magnificent anti-fascism speech. And I don't mean Antifa, I mean anti-fascists. So if you're going to get political about modern day politics, no, I mean Nazis and the Italian Fascist Party. And yes, Nazis are still fascists, and they all need to burn in every form of hell imaginable. But for the most part, let's try and stick with gaming and keep politics out of gaming. And by that I mean, if you're going to expose your prejudices at my gaming table, you're out of my gaming table. And then we come around in here. And down here. And down and up here. Yay. A little bit here. A little bit coming down here. Okay, that's the basic shapes for the hair. I gotta undo my foot. Ah! My foot was going to sleep. We're gonna switch to add 8. And we're gonna sharpen these hairs. And by doing this, we're actually gonna go from side to side a little bit to make it look a little bit wavy. Except for these areas where it's kind of thin. And bring it back over here and then down. And it's kind of, this one's going to be just a little bit curvy. And I guess I did curvy, not Kirby. It's not going to be a little pink guy that swallows things. It's looking pretty good. And now swoop down here. And that's his hair. And now for the mustache. Subtool, mustache. And this has to be subdivided a couple times. I'm going to go to sub 16 and shrink it. Okay. Now, there's not going to be a lot of individual strokes here because, you know, that's the way it goes. But it's still going to come down a bit because, you know, you kind of have to. There's got to be some kind of marking. So I once saw a mustache, 3D mustache for a figure that was made by someone who never could grow a mustache. It was a guy who was complete redhead. And what was really funny was that it didn't have the right growth pattern. It didn't grow in the direction that a mustache grew. Because he didn't know. How's that for funny? Okay, I'm thinking we're getting pretty much close to done here. Make everything visible. And I think the only thing we really have to worry about anymore on this for the rest of this figure is, are we going to do anything to the axe? Oh, better yet, I did this just for this kind of thing. I has go ahead and go up here. Go ahead and draw on a bag on this hip, and then split unmasked parts. And let's go for a pouch on the back hip over here. Split unmasked parts. Now the pouch, what we're going to do is we're going to switch to the move tool, make it bigger, much bigger, and just kind of move it down a bit. And then we're going to get the bag, I'm going to move it out a bit. And now that pouch, we're going to shrink this back down to normal. Because what we're going to do is we're going to have to bend the pouch to kind of follow the hip. So we're going to make it a little bit bigger. And bend it in. Yeah. There we go. And this pouch we're going to subdivide a couple times. And the same thing goes for the bag. And it's going to be divide, divide. That's good enough. Now, frame out. And it's pretty clear. He's gotten pretty detailed. Let me get some soda and we'll decide whether or not we want to put something on the axe. I'm thinking for the axe, we want to do something similar to what we did in the helmet. Let's give it a hammered pattern. And so for this, we're gonna go ahead and hide the base, and back here on the axe, and we're going to make sure with the standard brush selected, make sure that we've got auto masking and back face mask. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint in an area, and then we're going to clean it up here in just a second. And basically we're going to go ahead and just follow the edge here. And we're going to do something similar on this side. And then we're going to kind of draw around the edge to clean up the border of this. Oh hell. It's easier coming up. No. Let's turn that lazy mouse on, give it a... Yeah. Here we go. And then we're going to come around here. Don't come around here no more. And loop it around. Then we're going to masking and invert. And then we're going to deform and we're going to suck it in. We're going to deflate. And that should be good. Then we're going back to masking. And we're going to grow, just to make sure that our borders are also covered. I went too far on the deflate and went too deep. That should be good. Yeah, there we go. Once again, go to masking, grow mask. Let's grow it twice. Then we're going to use the standard brush, Z-sub, make sure that we turn off the lazy mouse. And once again, we're going to just kind of start drawing in these hammered designs. Not too deep, because we are already getting kind of close to where the other side is. And then up here. There we go. Now let's undo that. Let's frame out. And make the base visible. I think we're pretty much done here. Nope, we're not. We're not. We're not. No, 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 no. I forgot the hands. Yep. Silly, silly me, I forgot the hands. So, let's go ahead. First things first, let's inflate the inside of that thumb, because you know how it goes. It tends to be all funky weird. Let's turn off most of these extra bits here. Because I need to be able to see the hands. No, I need to be on inflate. There it is. And inflate the inside of the thumb. And then make sure that it's about the size of these hands. So that'd be a 14. And draw on, whoop. Draw on each knuckle and the tendons, and smooth. Well, smooth. Then let's go ahead and draw on our additional knuckles. And smooth the flats. I'm not going to worry too much about really smoothing over the knuckles, because really and truly this is a dwarf. They're going to have kind of burly, knuckly hands. We're going to just give them one quick once over to each of them, because it's a bit too much there. And then there. And that's that hand. And then the shield hand. The shield hand is not going to get very much. It's just going to get a little bit here, 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 and here, because the rest of it will be hidden by the shield. Speaking of, I want to check one thing on the shield. I want to make it bigger, and just want to make sure it's going into the shield. Okay, well, let's bring that back out. I had an incident with one of the shields that decided to be a bit weird and decided to just kind of hover. There. Let's turn that off. And then let's go ahead and make everything visible again. And let's zoom out. Frame. And here we have our Dwarven Paladin. So, I'm putting this back. And now I'm going to merge, select him, and I'm going to merge everything down. You'll notice that this time I actually remembered to add on the base when I actually made the figure. I made the geometry in Daz Studio. Okay. Now we go back to geometry and Dynamesh for 768. Okay, and this came out pretty nicely. It's at 2.584 million polygons, so we're going to need to adjust that. So we're going up to the Z plugin and popping it out, and Decimation Master. We're going to 70,000 triangles. Yes, I finally got around to making sacks and pouches and a couple other things that can go on the belt. Now, at this size, we should not see any change, really. Maybe a slight shading difference when it finishes reordering all of these polygons and changing the resolution. And let's see what happens. 2.584 million polygons. And 70,105 polygons. And you might be able to see a little bit of faceting on the legs, but really and truly, when this gets printed, nobody's going to be able to tell. This is going to be just a straight up badass little dwarven paladin. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to export this to my broadcast, new dwarf paladin figure. Save. With his nice little rocky base, because he's probably underground. And yeah. And hello, Cody! Welcome to the sculpt. As you can see, I have just finished making, in the past 2 hours, a dwarven paladin. Although I guess you could probably use it as just a basic dwarven fighter with axe and shield. But, you know, he's got the winged symbols on his chest and that, and fancy little stuffs. So yes, this, as far as I'm concerned, is a dwarven paladin. So did you enjoy what you saw, Cody? Oh, Tuxer. It's Tuxer, everybody. Yes. I have a cat, by the way, in this. Wait, no, he's over here behind me in one of my Transformers bookcases. Yes, that's what's mostly in this bookcase is Transformers. I've got a lot of Transformers. Anyway, so yeah, that was the Dwarven Paladin. Oh, well, that is pretty much the end of tonight's show. I got it done within 2 hours tonight. You know, I was for a moment there when I was sculpting the male, I was afraid it might go over, but I mean, he's pretty nicely detailed. He's, you know, pretty decent, pretty nicely active pose, and he's very clearly also a dwarf. So, from my point of view, that's a successful mini sculpt. Would you guys agree? Bum bum ba da ba da bum bum ba da bum bum ba da ba da bum bum ba da. Okay, I guess people have fallen asleep. Yeah, it's done. And here in about 3 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and sign out. I say 3 minutes because as usual, I probably end up rambling. And by the way, if you are in fact here for the first time, there's the whole like and subscribe thing down there. So, you know, like, subscribe, hit the bell, so you know that, and these guys make a really frickin' awesome printer. By the way, let me grab this, and I did print the Patreon sculpt from Sunday. Even the tiles came out nicely, but let's see, can you see it? No, you can't quite see it, but I mean, even, well, you kind of can up on this shoulder. Even the buttonholes and the collars came out. A halfling, little bitty guy, and that much detail came out. Yeah. So just imagine what you can really do with one of those. Yes, I love my photon. Even the tiles came out nicely. The nice big thick sharp divisions between the tiles and little tiny very faint ones for the patterns in the tiles. So it is now 10 o'clock Central Time. I happen to be in Central Time, and I got an itch in my ear. I've been itching right here for the past 10 minutes. So I'm going to hold up my hand, and when I can see my hand in the broadcast get to 1, then I will be logging out. So it's going to go ahead and everyone ready, because it's 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. Good night, everybody.